So how's everyone doing? We're a very small group. How's everyone doing?
I'm doing well.
Okay. How's the week going so far, Gideon?
It's not bad.
I feel like when I ask my students questions, these are the types of answers they give. Like my son could be like, I don't know, dying in the desert. He'd be like, it's okay. Things are okay.
Yeah,
So
I don't want to be too optimistic or pessimistic. Just
thank you for the high volume of information.
okay.
Okay, great. Let's jump straight in. So I see that Margaret, one of the questions that Margaret asked, or Margaret's here, and she asked a question. I think she's the only one of the three people on the call. I mean, is it not weird? There's only three people on the call because a bunch of people had questions. Are people waiting in a different room?
They're still on CBS, but they should
They're-
be here.
They're busy typing.
Yeah, CBS is still ongoing. I could remind them.
No. Let's not remind people. Everyone should be. How's that supposed to? Okay, people will come. Okay, here comes the group. Okay, so Margaret, your question was around, and some of the other questions. I think there's kind of a center of people around how do I choose which track. So Margaret, you asked which track has the highest demand. Jane Rose asked if I ask a track, can I switch to another track later? Natnael Melissa asks what are the key things we should consider while choosing our track. Nahom Hapta Michael asks, can we choose DE or ML? How do we choose our first job? What are the most significant parameters? And then availability of these positions. So Margaret had two questions. So, I mean, straight off, the way we're looking at it is that we want people to get what we would classify as a global level job. And so for us, that means it's a job where, and I think I had posted something about this before, where it's a high quality job in terms of remuneration, in terms of growth, and in terms of the ability to work in let's say, a respected environment or in an environment where there's a strong community. So I think those are things that we're looking for. And when we talk about a global level job, you can find those anywhere in the world, but given time zone issues, it's true that there is a likely preference for either in the same time zone as where you're located, or you need to be willing to overlap. And people say generally 2 to 3 hours of overlap with the region in which the region where the company is based or the team is based. Now, as the work from the remote work, so in 2020, the remote work thing was sort of, everyone was very excited and anyone could be anywhere and there was almost no requirements. That's changed, I'd say, in 2021 and earlier this year, we started to see a moving back where people said actually work from anywhere means remote in the US or remote in Europe. So people still wanted remote workers, but European companies wanted people to be based in Europe, and American companies wanted people to be based somewhere in the US. And a lot of that is due to insurance, liability, and tax reasons, where if you are sitting somewhere in the middle of in the world and you're not in the same country, how do they make sure that you're paying your taxes and that you are, if there's any issues, that they're managing some of the questions around liability. So that all being said, we are looking for people to get high quality global level jobs. Within the African environment, the majority of those that we're seeing are in Nigeria or in Kenya. We haven't found very many in Ethiopia so far. There are some, but not so many. We hope that that'll change. We think that the biggest reason why it takes time is rather a shortage of people who are probably like at the data science or at the senior data science level, right? There needs to be a pyramid of people. And so as you're coming in at the junior level, we need to find people at the right level of experience to supervise. So all this to say that I think that we do want people to work remotely, or we don't necessarily want people to fly away and go somewhere else. And we believe that there are enough remote jobs in different parts of the world, and you probably need to be realistic. If you are working with somebody in a different time zone, you will probably need to adjust your schedule. So what does that mean? It means if you're working with somebody in California, California is currently, I believe, 10 hours behind East Africa. So you're going to probably need to be working afternoons and evenings if you're based in Kenya and Ethiopia or in East Africa, as the majority of you are. But I wanted to make sure that the group here understood a little bit what we mean by global level jobs. And so the average salary that we're recommending, and it's difficult to put a number out, and I probably shouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it. The sort of number that we should have in mind as a target, if you're talking about an international company, is about $1,000 a month. Now that'll vary. For some companies, you can go higher. For some companies, you're going to need to go lower. For companies based in Africa, by and large, it'll be a little bit lower, with different advantages and disadvantages. And for international companies, that's probably where we should be looking at. If it's a startup company, it might be a bit lower. If it's a company with that's a little bit bigger and they have a pay structure in place, it might be a little bit higher. And so this is, again, it's not a straight Q&A. I wanted to try this like a discussion group. So if anyone else wants to add anything, or you just want to make an intervention right away, just put your hand up or just unmute and start talking, and we'll find a way to integrate everyone's commentary. Yeah. I don't know do we know who SoftEng 2006 is? It says this person may not claim to who they be. Let's not do that. Gideon, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I had a question about the finding jobs, like especially global level jobs. So I think Yawaval, whenever he's introducing us to the new tasks, he emphasizes that knowledge is not like the primary concern of our training, because that would take a long time, and it's more of just learning the tools and how to implement the different tasks. So when we're finding jobs, won't the employers want to know that we have a deep knowledge in the areas we're applying to?
What? For what? For which purpose?
Say we're applying for data engineering or a machine learning position, a junior level position, and during the interviews and so on, won't they want to know we have a deep understanding of the algorithms, the tools, and the entire process, for as if we've graduated from a college in the specific field. So I was just wondering about that.
So I think this is one of it's a good question. It's one of the misconceptions that people have. So Gideon, let me ask you a question back. If you were hiring, let's say you had a startup company, where would you hire someone to join your machine learning engineering team or your data engineering team? Where would you go?
Maybe college graduates.
But let's get more specific. So you need to hire 3 people. Where do you go looking?
LinkedIn,
and you start posting. Now, what level of knowledge, or let's make it a little bit more simple. So not machine learning engineering, data engineering. You want to hire someone to maintain your website. So you need a React expert. What sort of expertise are you looking for? And where do you go looking for that? Do you think that you will find a program that specializes in people who are really good at React?
No, I don't know.
Or DBT, or that someone who can do ML ops, and somebody who knows how to put all the different tools together. Do these programs exist?
I don't think so.
Hmm. Yeah, in our experience, they don't really exist. And so there are perhaps a handful of programs that do exist, and they're maybe rather at the master's level from some uh, so by and large, these programs don't exist. So I think that it's an important point. Please do not believe that you are underqualified for the roles you're underqualified for a job of the type that we're describing to you. And at the same time, I want to say you are not qualified for every job that is advertised. And so what we need to do is to get good at finding out which jobs we are qualified for. Now, our job, our role as an organization is to help you find those jobs and to prepare you to be attractive to those types of jobs. So we have a very specific and narrow focus. We're not here to, we are here to get you your first job as a machine learning engineer, data engineer, or as a Web3 engineer. Those are our goals. Now, we are confident that there's only 32 people left. We're confident that we'll be able to get you 32 people a good job at the global level. We're not worried about that. But it doesn't mean that every job that's out there is suitable for you. So what types of jobs are suitable for you? We're looking for you generally to join a team where there already is a manager in place who will be able to talk through the technical details with you and that can supervise you, where there's enough space that you can learn some of the tools as you go, where they're looking for the combination of technical and non-technical attributes that you have. And I want to emphasize, and it's pretty important, the projects that you've done as part of the training, plus the capstone projects we want you to take up, are important parts of they're important parts of making you attractive. So I'm going to be using the relationship analogy quite a lot. So we've tried to provide you with some key signals which make you attractive to employers. Just like if they're looking for a new romantic partner, there's probably certain things that they do in terms of how they behave or how they dress themselves to try and make them attractive to a romantic partner, right? So it doesn't mean that you're necessarily the perfect person for a long-term marriage, but if you do your hair properly and choose the right shoes, then maybe you get someone's attention and then you can have a discussion and then see what happens after that. There's kind of a line of questioning which also comes up on which career track should I choose? And this is also an important one. Do not believe that there is some super well-defined guild which says once you are branded with machine learning engineer, Web3 engineer, data engineer, that you can never leave, you can never change that track. So our job is, well, maybe I can frame this in another way. Any of you can go and find a job in any field if you want. So if any of you want to go and become, I don't know, a brain surgeon or a race car driver or an astronaut, I don't doubt that with enough sustained, dedicated effort, you would get there. But what it'll take is a lot of time. And so our goal is to get you placed into work quickly. Now, our advice is designed to do that. And what we've seen in the past is there's a number of people who they don't want to take our advice because they believe that they have a different insight, which is good. I'm happy to get new insights, but we're trying to get the most people into work as quickly as possible. So if we give you advice to say you're probably more suited for a data engineering role and you don't take that advice, no problem. It just might take you a lot longer to actually get a job and get placed. So our role is to get you a first job, and our experience is that once you get a little bit of work experience and you've familiarized yourself with the world of work and how things continue, then it's easy, right? Or it's easier. Getting your first job is hard, as most of you know. And that's why we're actually playing in this space. We're not saying, look, you can go and we're only going to deal with people with 3 years of experience. And we're going to market you and find people with find jobs for you. That would be a little bit easier. What we're saying is we want to place people with no work experience or up to 6 months of work experience. I know some of you might have a little bit more, but we want to play in that space and say, what can we, now that we've selected you, each of you has distinguished yourselves in some way, how do we make you as marketable as possible, so that you go through the process, which is you have your materials together, you pick your track, you get your materials together, you get an interview, you get an offer, you start work. Now, what we would like to do in the future is to continue on from there and to say, for the first 3 years of your career, we would like to connect you to our mentoring program. We don't have funding to do that. So right now, we're not focused on that. We're going to do that informally. Nevertheless, that's the kind of progression that we're going to be going through. So pick a track, which we're going to be doing this week, and then prepare your material. So material is CV, LinkedIn profile, GitHub profile, 10 Academy profile, and then use those materials to apply for jobs. And then there's the get an interview. And when you apply for jobs, it's very, 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 very rare that you'll get you'll usually have to go through multiple interview steps and then progress to an offer, and then you can start work. So the answer to the questions that were asked on Slack, can I pick my own career? I believe so. But if you want to maximize your chances, then I think following our recommendation or us deciding jointly is important. Nahom asks, what are the chances of applying for 2 different roles as data engineering or machine learning engineer? I would advise against it. It means that the name of the game here is going to be, it's a numbers game to a large extent. So everyone here should be ready to apply for between 200 and 300 jobs. That's just the number. And so that's a lot of work. The second is it takes a lot. Companies are slow. So you apply for a job, you apply to whichever job. In the very best case, in the best of worlds, you're going to be getting your first response back from this company in 3 weeks, because the company needs to review. Maybe they're not looking right then. It's usually about 3 weeks before you hear anything back. Once you hear something back, that process takes a while. So if you are then trying to apply for 2 different types of jobs, that's even more difficult. It means you need to be upgrading your skills on 2 different types of tracks. You're going to have to inform yourself about 2 different types of industries. What we've seen happens a lot, which is exciting, is people, when they start applying for jobs, it's a really good learning process. Even just by looking at which skills, tools, technologies do companies, are they advertising for, you start to learn that, wait a minute, Docker is actually more important than I realized, or people are talking about Fivetran or Looker, or there's this new NLP library that I'm really interested in, so I want to get further down that track. So if you want to keep yourself open, you're going to make your life more difficult, and I would say reduce your chances of succeeding on the quicker side. Jane Rose asks, can I switch to another track later on in my career? Of course. There's people who are working in Web3 right now, and they started their careers 10 years ago when Web3 didn't exist. So we're only talking about our first job, and the approach that we want to inculcate is one of go to work and demonstrate your work ethic, your curiosity, your willingness to learn and unlearn and relearn, being good to others in the community, good communication skills, and then you will make your own pathway as you go on. So there's nothing that's getting you stuck into this one particular career. Interestingly, there's a lot of people who believe that as you get more senior, it's a little bit hard to stay technical. And so everyone graduates and becomes a manager and doesn't do anything technical anyways. So that's neither here nor there. So let's just remind everyone, this is not meant to be a monologue. It's meant to be a discussion. So as Gideon put his hand up, please feel free to put your hand up as well. Michael and Natnal have a similar question, key things to consider versus 3 most significant parameters when choosing my first job. So I think choosing a job that, choosing one of the 3 career tracks that we're suggesting and choosing only those is one important thing. 2 is being open and honest with yourself about what skills do you need to improve on to be successful in that job? So anyone who's interested in being a machine learning engineer needs to probably be comfortable and familiar with Docker, for example, because that's going to be an important. That's going to be important. And then the third one is, so I'm talking more about the choosing the career tracks. So to answer the question a little bit, so actually maybe they're different questions. So for Natnell's question, I would say picking the right career track. And a big part of it, guys, is we will be talking about prerequisites. So basically, the industry says if you don't have a web engineering or a web development background, then you should be a data engineer. And we're going to be pushing that rather strongly. And there's a lot of people who are going to say, look, I don't believe you. I think I'm going to go and learn. I'm going to do a 2-week-long crash course on React, and I'm going to become a React expert in 2 weeks. And this is where Gideon's question becomes a little bit, it becomes true. You can't replace 1 or 2 years of software development experience in a 2-week-long course. You just don't have the feel for it. You don't have the comfort. It becomes very clear. So for certain, this is where the work that we've done in developing the familiarity with some of the data engineering tool stacks and the tooling and the approaches, you've spent 3 intense months. So we have seen that it's enough experience to get you an interview. But in choosing a track, if you don't have a web development background, if you can't be working with JavaScript frameworks, then you should be choosing a data engineering career track. On the Web3 side, we're interested and excited to get people into Web3. However, it's a new and emerging field, and it's a bit of a challenge, right? We don't know exactly what's going to be coming out in Web3. The companies that are hiring in Web3 it's a bit different. They're looking for people to build with them. They may not be as open to remote work. There aren't as many scale-up companies. So it's an exciting space. I think there's a lot of growth that's possible there, but it needs a different sort of energy and a different sort of mindset. And for Michael, your question, when choosing your first job, if you're choosing between different offers, I think money is not the thing you should optimize. You should be optimizing money 2 years out. So you should be thinking about, is this a company that'll be teaching me? Are these people that I can work with? Are the conditions reasonable, which includes salary? But I would still, at your age, before you have responsibilities, be thinking about growth trajectory as opposed to starting to get a payout right now. And I think you should be open with your manager about that. Each of you should be regularly telling your manager, look, I want to learn a lot. I want to be excellent in this field, and I'm going to be doing that by working really hard at my job and delivering for you and for your company. Margaret asks, which track is the highest demand in the job market at the moment? There's an enormous need for data engineers. Data engineers there's a huge shortage because there's a famous data scientist, machine learning engineer, the guy who founded Coursera, that was Sebastian Thrun. He's one of the founders of Coursera, I can say that. And he's the guy who does Andrew Ng. He talks a lot about the fact that if you want to play with different machine learning models, maybe you get from 81 to 82%. But if you have bad data going into your system, that makes an enormous difference. So his suggestion was, and there's this push to data-centric AI. And there's quite a big movement around that, but many, many, many companies are struggling to get data into their systems. So there's a huge need for getting better data into the system. So I would say overall data engineering is the best fit, most number of jobs. Machine learning engineering is in demand, so is Web3 engineering. That's why we've picked these tracks. Mohammed, could you unmute and tell me about, give us some more details. Which requirements are you talking about?
I mean the technical requirement. For example, yes, for example, SQL and mathematics and those technical stuff.
But for which track?
Either for Data engineering or machine learning engineering?
So for machine learning engineering, the distinguishing factor would be your software engineering background. For data engineering, yeah, you need to learn SQL. But I think learning SQL is an easier task given most people's background knowledge and association than picking up web development. So if it's a question of should I learn SQL or not, yes, you should. And I think most people are not that far away from it. I think everyone's been doing these Python SQL challenges. We've been using it in different parts of the challenges. But I think the knowledge that we've given you, and maybe this is part of why we're emphasizing this, we don't teach web engineering. We don't teach web development. So that's why we are expecting people to come into the prerequisite knowledge if you want to go on to become a machine learning engineer. Otherwise, we've seen that we teach enough data engineering. So I think SQL is definitely something that people need to pick up. And we'll be able to share a list of kind of a checklist of where, how you can assess your knowledge in SQL and Python and where everyone should be. So I think that covers, Yishak asked if we can invite some of the 10 Academy alumni. We don't have any alumni in Web3 yet. We just had our first graduates come out in July, just before you guys started. And so we don't have any alumni that have come through yet, who are started to work. We actually just got our first interview yesterday. So we're excited about that. We have to see how that, we have to watch this space and see how things go. On the data engineering side and on the machine learning engineering side, we can do that. Yeah. Not now?
Okay. You suggested like we don't switch tracks while applying for a job. So for example, if we pick machine learning, we should stick with it and apply.
Yeah.
So what are the chances like there is a job out there like 200, 300 machine learning opportunities, and the same goes for the 3 stacks, like 300 jobs specifically for data engineering and also 200, 300 jobs for Web3. What are the chances?
I think we did this before, where I did sort of, I'm going to do it again. I thought we did this before, but I'm going to, I'm just going to do a live search for, it's going to show you guys my LinkedIn. So if I go to jobs,
my issue here is like most of the jobs, like especially in LinkedIn and also in Indeed, requires someone more than 2 years experience in software engineering, especially in the machine learning part.
not necessarily. Well, I mean, so this is where I think if you're within 3 years of what they recommend, so there's 141,000 results right now in the United States. So you're looking for one. So we're looking for 300. So is it possible? Yes. Is it necessarily going to drop right into, is it easy? Is it easy to find these jobs? Or maybe put it in another way, is it going to be work to find the right sorts of jobs? It is going to be work. But are you able to find 300 jobs that you're suitable for? Absolutely. But I mean, not now. So let's discuss that. I know it's just that it's something that I've said, but it doesn't make it true. So do you believe that to be true, or does that align with what you've seen? And maybe anyone else can unmute as well. Mohammed, go ahead.
Sorry. Sorry, I didn't get the question well. Are you referring?
He was asking if there are enough jobs that are out there. Are there 300 jobs which meet the criteria, which meet the profiles that you have?
Yes, I think yes, but due to the competency of other people around the world, it should be very hard.
Okay. Anyone else?
If I can add, like it's a question, but kind of similar. It doesn't matter in my view, it doesn't matter how many jobs you can find. Maybe you can find one and then you apply and you get that one. But maybe a measure that is more useful is how much competition is there for these jobs that are available. For example, if you can answer this, do you know if there is a measure of how many people apply to these jobs normally? Like, if you have this opening, how many applications do you receive?
So I think you should be expecting about 100 people apply for a job that you apply for.
And I mean, okay, so 100 people, so 1 in 100. So it's not really a high.
That's assuming everyone is at the same level.
Yeah. Okay. What about when you are moving up? Sometimes in some fields, I'm coming from academia, which is a very different field, and there the starting jobs are like there's many. Moving up, you cannot find a position, so you cannot move forward in that field.
It's not the same. I mean, this is where, so I think it's a growth field. So it's not like academia. Academia is a different beast. So there seems to be a lot of, I mean, maybe I can just take a poll. So I'm gonna make a statement and then ask you to put your hands up when it reflects your view of yourselves as it compares to the global market. So how good do you think you are as a machine learning, I'm going to say as a machine learning or data engineer? Let's leave Web3 aside for now. As a machine learning engineer, data engineer, or Web3 engineer on the global market. So I'm going to say 3 levels. One is very good, one is okay, and the third is not very good. And so I just want to get a sense from the group how people are feeling. So who thinks that they're very good? So just put your hand up. I just want to get a sense of confidence, of hope. So very good. So I'm going to count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's 3 people. Good. How many people feel that they're good? It's 1, 2. It's about half the group. Okay. And not very good? Not very good? Nobody. Okay, so for those, some people didn't respond. So why are we? Yeah, about machine learning engineering, data engineering, Web3 engineering. Mohammed, go ahead.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
When I raised my hand in very good, my background opinion was, it's not about how much knowledge you have. It's about how ready and how tools you have been familiarized yourself with. So what I think that 10 Academy has given us all of the tools that we need, real world tools that we could use in our job. So and after that, by practicing and entering our first role, things will come up. So that basically was my opinion. So can you reflect on my point, or can you correct me if I'm wrong?
No, I think as usual, you've captured the sense of what we're trying to do. So the details and the truth is that it's a lot of work, right? So there is no free lunch. We have some partners and we'll be doing the best we can to connect people to work, but actually we want more people to go out and to find their own jobs. There is no free lunch. As you know, the training has been hard. Each of you has put in a lot of hard work. And I'm sure that each of you was also trying to pick up some of the stuff by yourself before. So we're now in week 8. You guys have worked hard to get here. It hasn't been easy, a lot of effort. The job search is in the same way, it's doable, but it is a lot of hard work. And it's a different type of hard work. It means that you have to be willing to deal with the rejection of 200 to 250 people saying no, even if you're suitable for some of those jobs. And you have to set up a system, either with friends or with family or in your own head, running meditation, religion, fun, some system for you to deal with that. It doesn't change the fact that you do have skills that are in demand and the employment market is inefficient. If you guys were physically located in the United States and you had the right to work there, it would take you half the time, because that's just how it is. Now, the reality is you're not located in the United States, so it doesn't matter. You don't need to worry about that. You can't change that. So we have to deal with the reality as it is. The second reality, which is going to be difficult, is the willingness and ability to actually acquire new skills as time goes on. When you go out and you look and see that this is what an employer needs, or you go to an interview and you fail the interview because you weren't fast enough at the coding challenge, or you weren't able to solve the problem, where you get up and you say, you know what, okay, I'm going to go and learn this, or I'm going to talk to somebody about how to do this. But our feeling is that if you're applying for the right jobs, about 5% of them should result in an interview. About. It depends a little bit on the person, depends a bit on the country, depends a bit on luck. About 5%. So that gives you an idea of scope and of scale. But there are jobs that are out there which are suitable for you. And what we've tried to do, and we've seen that it works, even if I'm sure lots of you know at least a handful of people who haven't been placed yet. So we're still working on our job placement system. That being said, there's a lot of people who have taken the projects that we've provided them. They've taken the training that we've provided them. They've taken all of the different skills that are together, and they've been able to apply for jobs, to get an interview, to match into a really good job. And what we're looking for is sort of a jump in impact, a jump in the level of job. So that's basically, we call it jump starting your career. But our task, and so we're also here to break it down into meaningful or manageable chunks. So our task for this week is to pick a track which is suitable for you. And what I don't want is that people are trying to optimize across, at the start, people would say, look, I am willing to work so hard, I'm going to apply for every single track that you have available. It's not a strategy that we recommend. We're going for, so Mohammed, we're at, I think, 25% right now. I'd have to look at the number. We just had one more person placed earlier this week. So we're at about 25% after 2 months. So it's lower than we want it to be. But yeah, about 25% so far after 2 months. In 2020, after 3 months, we were at 2%. So we're getting faster each batch, and then it came very quickly after that, or it came faster after that. Batch 4 was better. Batch 5 is still better than we have been in the past. We think batch 6 will be, again, it'll be better. But our task for this week is very straightforward. Let us pick the right track, which will maximize our chances of getting our first job. And once you pick that track, then we can start working on our materials. And after that, then we're going to start working on, so we do the materials, there's a couple other things we're going to do, and then we start the application process. But just the process of putting the materials together, it's going to take time. And one of the things that we're going to fight with each of you on is, how do you make a CV which is error-free? And your CV and your LinkedIn and your GitHub profile and your Khan Academy profile, they all need to be good. And unfortunately, I mean, it maybe sounds really boring, but we were all kind of talking about the marathon. The exciting part is watching Kipchoge cross the finish line. The reality of his last 2 years is probably just a lot of boring work, right? Like, can you imagine spending years and years just running every day, or just dealing with shoes or nutrition or going to sleep at the same time? So we want to break this down into constituent chunks. I would recommend people not to overthink it. Don't worry too much about it, but we have a system, we have experience, and we're here to work with you to get you guys into that system. And our success is predicated on your success. So if you don't get into work, our program doesn't work. We're not working on the materials this week, Amtinan. This week we're going to choose our tracks. I think we're going to start on the materials next week. But Amtinan, go ahead, and then we'll take Gideon.
Yeah, I have a question more about the future. Let's say it's a more optimistic thing, thinking that, okay, suppose we succeed in this. I mean,
You have
finishing
to
the training. Yes,
You have to
okay.
succeed.
Succeeding in not only getting interviewed, but also getting placed.
But you will.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
remember this. It's the 11th of October. When you get your offer, I'm going to remind you of this day.
Okay. So, on average, like, let's say it's on average, from the top of your head, how long people stay in a job before they start applying for another job? I mean, I'm trying to see.
We recommend at least 1 year.
At least 1 year, but I mean, on average, if you want to stay longer, do people usually get to stay longer, or they don't get? Do they have to go through this application? Hard. Is it like it's possible to do it every 3 years, or how?
So this is the hardest. What you guys are going through right now is the hardest point. It only gets easier after this.
It's easier.
It gets easier because you
Not
have work.
harder.
No, it
Okay.
gets easier because you have work experience.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
You're right now, you're in the chicken and egg situation where everyone says we want to hire people with work experience, but there are not enough pathways for people without work experience. So it only gets easier. Our experience has been if you are doing well, then companies have the opposite problem. They want to keep their employees. It's horrible when they lose team members.
Okay.
So, I mean, everyone's situation is different, but we have had a handful of experiences. I can think of 3 experiences where a company asked a person to leave. I can only think of 3. Out of about 100 people that we've placed so far, only about 3.
Can you tell us anything about what was the reason? Is it
All 3 were actually the same reason, to be honest.
what was it? Is it like an employee side of problem, or is it a company's?
It's a mix, right? So an employment is like a relationship, and you have to provide what the other person is looking for. In all 3 cases, it was a absent employer. So the employer didn't have the time to supervise the person very well. And in all 3 cases, the person was not able to make their own job in a suitable way. So in all 3 cases, they said, look, this person is really good, but we realize we can't supervise that much, and this person is not able to supervise themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't sound so good situation to be in.
It happens, right? That's why I'm saying when you want to pick your job, you should also ask questions to the employer. How much are you going to have time for a half-hour call every day with me? Or what happens, who's my direct manager? Has that person been hired? Do you have funding for this? So yeah, I mean, of course, there's sometimes there's good luck and bad luck. It's only, I'd say 3% of the cases that we've had. So it's not a big number. But yeah, I mean, this is where we are here. We want to keep being available. I'm there. I'm invested in your success and in the program. So whenever these sorts of questions come up, you guys can always reach out and ask me, even once you're working. Gideon?
My question is, so when exactly are we going to like discuss which track to follow with the Teen Academy team?
So we're going to be doing it this week. That should be part of the non-technical challenge for this week. I think that's the actual assignment. Yeah, I don't know.
Are we going to have
So
a
I'm gonna-
one-on-one session, or?
So that's the actual assignment. So I'm going to check with, so Miriam's away this week. Let me check with Maureen and Sadiq and then come back to you, or they'll write, but it's this week. That's the assignment. So basically now we should be thinking, which track do we want to pursue? I mean, it's an important week. It's Tuesday. There's enough time, but for most people, it's not such a big decision. I think for most people, if you have a software engineering background, then you have a decision to make. If you don't, then it's pretty straightforward. And then the choice of Web3, so I want to make a plug for Web3. If you are ready and willing and interested in, I would say, working hard and doing something different and I wouldn't say taking a risk, but the Web3 industry, everyone believes that it's growing fast. Everyone knows that a lot of exciting things are going to happen. Nobody knows exactly when it'll happen, what form it'll take, but there will be growth there. So I think the Web3 industry, especially for those of you who are good communicators, it's an especially exciting opportunity. I mean,
One more
but
question.
it is a bit high risk. Yeah.
I had one more question. You mentioned that in order to pursue machine learning background, you need to have some type of web development experience. So is that front end or back end, or?
I think front end, you should have one of the two. I think you should have some JavaScript experience, either front end or back end.
Does it have to be like a JavaScript framework, or?
So if not JavaScript, then
I don't know, maybe like Flutter.
I think Flutter would also work. JavaScript seems to be more in demand, but I think Flutter would be okay too.
But it has to be in front end. You have to have experience.
I think back end, look, it depends, right? I think the more, experience, you should be able to work with it, even if you've done a school project and you get. So the other thing, how do these things work? Typically, you'll get a challenge, right? So every company nowadays gives you a technical challenge, and the machine learning challenges that we're seeing, they tend to be web development heavy. So is it going to be front end? Is it going to be back end? Is it going to be some combination of the two? If you've never touched this stuff before, if you've never developed something which is significant with these tools, you're going to struggle during the challenge. So we can talk, and I don't have a clear answer to your question. Does it have to be front end? Does it have to be back end? I would say rather front end for the machine learning side. When we're talking about experience, what does that mean? I would classify it as, at minimum, you're comfortable actually doing something independently by yourself, and then you can layer on the machine learning on top of that. Natnael, so let me open the queue. Natnael Malese, and then Mohammed, then Anjanat.
Okay, so my question is, how long should we wait, to apply for our first job? Well, as you mentioned, it might take 3 weeks up to 4 weeks to companies to reach back to us. So how long should we? How far should we wait to start? In week 10, week 11, or should we wait?
If you have the time and your material, I wouldn't apply until you've decided and your materials are good. We had one person last year who decided that he started applying in week 6. He was a bit of a special case. I think he really put an enormous amount of time into it. He actually said he spent 2 hours a day working on non-technical stuff because he really saw the value of that. So he was the first guy to get placed because he started working on it very early. I think for the majority of people, what I would recommend is that you do the training, and then we will have this 3-month supported job search phase where we're going to be working with you to make sure that you can actually get placed into work. So for most people, I would put your time and energy into the training. If you have if you have time, I would, if you get your CV and your LinkedIn ready, then spending half an hour a day poking around and maybe doing a couple of applications is probably not a bad idea. And the reason I say that is we're not a school. We're trying to get you into your first job. And so if you basically, then you start to get a little bit of an idea of these jobs you're applying to are your customers. And so if you start to talk to your customers and see what they're looking for, then that's often, yeah, I mean, that's just more information for you. Mohammed?
So, okay. I think you have answered my question, but not in a direct way. I'm coming from an engineering background. So what I want in the first place, what I want to pursue was machine learning, and it seems like Khan Academy prefer you should have a degree in computer science to pursue a machine learning track. So ultimately, I think Khan Academy have a similar experience with this situation, but in my situation, I want to pursue a machine learning engineering track, but I'm not coming from a computer science background. So I'm going to choose either data engineering or machine learning engineering. I'm not quite interested in Web3 right now, but I'm going to choose one of them.
Okay. You can send me a message. We can talk about it. But I want to just come back to you and make a correction, I would say. We have no preference. Khan Academy has no preference. All we're doing is letting you know what we think industry is looking for. I don't care. Nobody on the team cares. We want you guys to get a job. Whether you get a job doing machine learning engineering, you want to be a cook, you want to be a belly dancer, it doesn't matter to us. But you came to us because you said you wanted to get a job. And so our role is to say, this is how we think we can maximize your chances of getting a job. So it's not us, but this is our view of what industry is looking for.
Okay, I get you. At the end of place, you are advising me to pursue a track that my chances would be higher in that track. So, okay.
Exactly. And so our belief is that if you start with a data engineering track and get a year of work experience, then you can keep learning whatever other stuff you're doing, or you within that company, then you gain more experience, or you take on a parallel role, or you go do something else. We have a really, really narrow focus. Let us get you your first job. Even if you have zero work experience, we want you to get your first job. And we think that first job can be really good. That's it. That's all we're trying to do. It's so dumb simple. That's all we're trying to do. But we're trying to do it quickly. And so that's why, people who say, I want to go out and become a cosmologist, no problem. But that's not our, then you should go and do a PhD somewhere. But that's not us. Okay, Anana?
Yeah, my question is, when you say like having a prior experience in web technology is good, how do you define experience? I mean, do we have to be like employed on a specific company, or like having experience in working with projects and contractual projects and freelancing stuff like that? Can we count that as an experience? Like if I have an experience working like as a freelancer or like contractor working on a web technologies, can I say that I have experience, like 1 or 2 years of experience of web technology?
So I think what we're trying to say here is, if you're comfortable working with these technologies, then fine. Then you're not starting from scratch. It means that when you're given a challenge, you're given a task at work, you have enough familiarity that you can quickly go and do something with it. But for example, I learned programming 20 years ago. If you asked me to develop on JavaScript, I mean, eventually I could figure it out, but it would take me 3 weeks to figure out something where somebody who's done a couple of independent projects, and that's the type of experience that we are seeing, people who have usually done a couple of university projects, or they've done some passion projects, they've developed something by themselves, even if it's just putting up something for school, it's usually a good enough start. The more experience, the better. But if you're able to work independently, it's usually good enough.
Yeah, but like in some job description, I've seen like things being mentioned as a 2-year or a 1 year of professional work experience. So that
It depends. It
for
really
those,
depends.
like, can we just bet on our like skills and the projects we've done so far as just to apply, no matter like what the job description says? I mean, the employment like description says.
Okay, under that, let me give you a scenario. You're hiring a cook for your family. You want someone to cook for
Yeah.
your family. What would you write as your description?
Yeah, someone like who has worked maybe like worked in a cafeteria or some kitchen, like have some experience, like, and preferably I'm going to like make that guy cook something for me, like a specific dishes, and if it tastes good, like, I'm gonna hire him. Like I am more concerned, like personally, about like what he can brings to the table than what like where he has been or done.
Right.
That's just
And
me personally.
right. And then so what we're seeing is that, let's take that scenario, and if you have 3 people who come to your house, one guy is an experienced chef at the Sheraton in Addis, one guy has done a few cooking courses, and the third person has never cooked before. And the Sheraton guy produces something which, you know, it looks nice, it doesn't taste that good. The middle guy puts a lot of work, knows enough about cooking to be to really, and works really hard, really cares, understands what you're looking for, and creates something which tastes really good and that you love. And the third guy gets lost in the kitchen. So which one are you going to hire?
The middle one, obviously.
And that's our goal for you guys, right? So we know that you don't have 5 years of work experience, but you should know enough, plus your work ethic, plus you talk to people, and that you impress them. And we found that that's enough. So if you don't know anything about cooking, if you don't know anything about programming, you're not going to get the interview, you're not going to get the job. By the time you finish, you guys know enough to get the interview. And then with your approach to work, we found that that's enough to pass interviews too, and enough to keep going and being successful. So that's where we're aiming. We can't replace 5 years of work experience in 3 months, but we can teach you enough and select for work ethic and select for hunger. That's what we're doing.
So no matter what the description says, like, can we go ahead?
You should be. No,
I mean, like,
we
specifically
have to,
for the experience.
it depends. This is where we have to. Job descriptions are not all written in the same way. So you want to stay away from. Sorry, just give me 1 second. I have to delay a call. Just give me 1 second here. So what you definitely don't want to do is I think there's 2 types of jobs that you'll see. One is, I want you to work on an existing system, and the other is, I want you to build a system. So you should not be applying for jobs that say, I want you to build a system, because you don't have the experience to do that. You should and sometimes that's written as the number of years of work experience are not always consistent. But the filter should be, can I join a team where I can work on an existing system or maintain something which is already built, or work with other people to build something? But you are not qualified for making decisions to build a new system yet, not in your first job. And so that for me is the distinguishing factor.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
And some companies will clearly say, okay, I need 5 years of experience. Some people will call that 1 year of experience. So it really depends. I want us to focus for the rest of the training on how do we keep our hope at the right level. Because, you know, even if a lot of people put their hands up in the middle, that's the right place that you should be. You guys are good. You don't have a lot of experience, but you have enough, and it is enough if you follow the system and you stick with the system to get interviews and to get jobs. But you have to stay positive, and we have to stay optimistic. And that's going to be something for us to work on, because I think for many people here, you've somehow convinced yourselves that you're not going to make it. But actually, you are going to make it. You just have to stick with it. And I don't think it's that easy to teach that. I think we just have to show that. We're seeing people who are getting interviews, who are getting offers, who really didn't believe it themselves. We had one person was interviewing from batch 5, was interviewing with 3 companies. He applied for many jobs. He was interviewing for 3 companies in parallel. He got his first offer. He said yes in 6 minutes. He said yes without even telling us. And I was like, please, we should go and talk to the other people as well. He's like, no, forget it. I'm taking that job because that's like, it's an offer, and I'm earning it was 6 minutes later. And yeah, it was too much. So Faseha, for batch 6, the success rate is currently 0. Because you guys haven't finished it.
Sorry, I meant batch 5.
No, you only get 1 question. Sorry.
That's not fair. I joined in late. Okay. Maybe
Yeah, so that's what happens when you, that's what happens when you come late. No, we're at about 25%.
That's nice. And is there one thing that you saw that could actually maximize their opportunity for success?
Yeah, it's the amount of work they put into it. There's nothing else. Do you know how many people just give up and they go do something else? The people who are getting interviews are the people who are sticking with the program. They're putting in their applications. It's at a certain point, it's not, you guys are overthinking the complexity of the system. It's a numbers game to a large extent.
Okay, I actually
it's not that magical.
Yeah, I actually think I understand that. And for me personally, I really think I have the reverse problem, which is I really think, I don't want to say think, but I really want to get this thing. And I don't think, we'll see in the future, but I don't think some of us are going to have that problem you just mentioned of quitting and doing something other. So I'm really optimistic about the whole thing. So thanks. And rewatch the recording. I really wanted to be here the whole time, but unfortunately I couldn't make it. So thanks.
Yeah. Okay, guys. I need to jump off, but so I think it's been useful. You guys can always. I'd like to see more questions coming up in the careers group. So as we transition into, we're getting ready for the end of the program. Let's keep these discussions going. Whenever you guys want a Q&A, let me know, and we can jump back on a call. And so Nahom, very quickly, 25% is much better than where we are. I think what the 25% doesn't reflect is the number of people who are interviewing. So there are people who are getting interviews. So 25% is signed and at work. So after 2 months, they're already in their jobs and they're earning. So yeah, I think that we could be higher, but it's still the best we've ever been. So yeah, I'm optimistic. I need to run. I have another call, which I'm late for. Thank you. I'm going to stop. Bye, everyone. Let me stop the recording.